I see a red light. I'm on the air. Hi, boys and girls. It's me, Butch. My name is David Silvercloud, and I'm 74 years old as of yesterday. Today's a cool and rainy day in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, where I live, and the date is the 25th of October, 2018. So the world is still here, and so am I. So being the old fart that I am, and living alone, trying to be an artist in my old age, I try to keep busy by doing things, one of which is making videos. So like Grandpa Simpson, I can get out and trash the things that upset me. So I wanted to talk a bit today about God, the word God, the meaning of God, all of that. And I'm doing that because my aches and pains from my arthritis were a bit more severe today, and I've been sitting down a lot. What am I going to do? And just to make a video. Here I am. So I'm 74, and I grew up in a slightly dysfunctional family that didn't have a lot of money. And we were all quite religious. I was brainwashed into religion at an early age. Was Lutherans when I was very young, and then Anglican around after I was 10 or 11. I even sang in the church choir. So I began to have my doubts about God around the time I reached puberty, and that really isn't the big issue right now, but the point of it is that I first questioned what this God thing was about at around age 12 for sure. And I'm a pretty smart type of kid. I'm one of those, I'm not a Sheldon Cooper, but I was always one of those, the smart kid in the class kind of people, quiet. And so my decisions about God way back then when I was 12 was that I don't know what's going on, but if I just do what I think is right and try to be a good person as best I can be, things will work out. I have no idea what this heaven and hell thing is all about. And it wasn't until really I was getting into my 30s and I was studying a book called the Urantia book. And I'm not even going to get into what the Urantia book is about. I can tell you that I deem it to be like a lot of religious texts, like the Book of Mormon. It's just completely 100% fake. The Urantia book was contrived out of the writings of some Seventh-day Adventists trying to create a brand new religion. And the Supreme Court of the United States told the Urantia Foundation, who had held the copyright of the book since 1955 and were trying to stop other people from publishing it. The Supreme Court of the United States said a book written by aliens could not be copyrighted, so you don't have a copyright. And if you want to check the Urantia book out, you can find it online, and I'm here to tell you it's 100% fake, so it's a long read. It took me a lot of studying. It made me think about a lot of things. But I can tell you it's just a big made-up story. So getting back to the God thing, to me, I guess at the point which I could say I was completely 100% an atheist was 20, 30 years ago. The in-between time up to then, I didn't really give it much thought. It was still the same as when I was a kid, that whatever's going on, it'll work itself out. And even as an atheist and as a physicist, I'm into physics, believes that the very idea of afterlives is just silly. I mean, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But if there is something else going on, I'm more than certain, because I'm into science and physics, that the laws of physics will prevail and it will all work itself out, whatever it is. So you do not need a religion to be a good person. You do not need a religion to be a moral person. These are all personal kinds of beliefs, and they change with societies. I mean, it wasn't long ago that ugly little old ladies got burned as witches, and lots of people got burned alive just for disagreeing with church ideas. And slavery even today is quite common in many parts of the world, and slavery was common until very recently. Even the Native American Indians, or Native Americans, the indigenous people, many of them kept slaves. It was just common. They might like to have softened up, say, well, we welcome them into our family. Yeah, but they did what they were told when they were told and how to do it, and it was slavery. A British sailor who was captured by some West Coast natives and kept as a slave for many years in the 1800s escaped eventually and got back to England and wrote about his adventures. I don't remember his name. I became aware of Native American slavery just a few years back. I hadn't even thought about it. It's like you assume that horses are part of Native American culture. You see pictures of natives, with their feathers atop horses and in the cowboy and Indian kind of movies. When I was a kid, there were lots of horses. Horses were a big deal. And in the late, 17, 1800s, there were lots of horses, but horses are not native to North-South America, and there were 0 horses in North America before the year 1510. So the Native Americans adopted Western culture by adopting the horse. Horses got nothing at all to do with Native American culture, except that once the horsies got loose in North America, the Native Americans made really good use of them. So let's get back to God. So to me, I think when people talk about God, they need to lay down a definition, because there's umpteen religions out there, almost every single one of which I consider to be the epitome of evil. Buddhism is, if they left out all the ritual and Dalai Lamas and all that crap, Buddha would probably be horrified by what's going on. From what I've read of Buddhism, which has hells, actually, you're trying to escape hells. You either have to go through 8 or 16 of them, depending on what tradition you follow in Buddhism, before you can achieve some kind of nirvana. And it can be similar with a lot of those Eastern religions, that you've got to suffer before you can escape and suffer no more. So life is suffering. That is what life is about. Get over it. Get used to it. Earth is a living hell. I mean, you might have some really neat adventures. You might have some great sex. But in the end, for the majority of people, and has been in all history, life is hell. It's been pretty good for me. I was fortunate enough to have lived through the 70s in North America as a white person who spoke English. And so for me, life was pretty good, more or less, except I grew up poor. Still don't have much money. But to me, in my old age, and I said I became an atheist more like 20 or so, a little bit more years ago, and that was after studying a lot of religions just to see what they were all about, and then really getting back into very serious physics at the atomic level of reality. And once you get into serious physics, the whole idea of God just seems like, you're kidding, that's just plain silly. I mean, it's just ridiculous. People like to have a creator, but what or whom created the creator, and how did God get to be in charge of that? It's an argument that has no end, and that's why it's ridiculous. That's why there can't be a God. God, to me, if you have to have a word God, is something like the Force in Star Wars, where it's physics is, and I'm a physicist, I can tell you this, physics is only beginning to grasp or accept the idea of an infinite universe, that it just doesn't stop. Because of our creationist ideas, people have sort of thought of this ball of something floating in who knows where in space, and that It's expanding. Big Bang Theory is just ridiculous. I'm not even going to get into that. I think it's ridiculous, and anybody else that espouses Big Bang Theory hasn't done very much thinking. It's like they probably believe in God. That's where their thinking comes from. They conservative people take the easy answer out without questioning things. You know, there are no easy answers. Everything's hard. There's no such thing as, well, there are some easy answers. You get what I'm getting at. I'm trying to make a metaphor, and speaking of metaphors, that's the point of this, is that God, in my reality as a physicist, is a metaphor for the sum of an infinite reality that has no end ever, in time or in space. And that's the only logical conclusion which a real physicist can reach. Now, it may be that there are clumps of more dense matter, and many of them, and some within larger ones, you know, universes and multiverses and universes within universes, but that's happening already. Reality at the atomic level of reality is so tiny that the concept of a second is an extraordinarily long time on the surface of an atom. You know, on the surface of an atom, time is more best understood if you were walking on the surface of an atom. If your watch was keeping time in picoseconds, which are trillionths of a second. So time is relative to how big you are, and infinity is really big. It's as big as you can get. And we, within that infinity, we're here and gone like that. The meaning of it, I have no idea, but the idea of a ruler God or even a creator God is just fundamentally illogical and ridiculous. But if you want to use the word God to mean the sum of reality which can't have personality, which can't have authority, it's simply the playground in which reality exists and in the physics of my world. And I espouse my own grand unified theory, which is pretty easy to understand if you're a physicist. Basically, infinity is real. It's filled with dark energy, and dark energy and matter are really the same thing, depending upon the observational time with which you observe it. This is getting into the Schrodinger's cat kind of thing, like how long was the observation? And if you're really going to observe an electron, you've got to be observing it in trillionths or of a second, or attoseconds even, in order to slow your vision down of what is really going on. So I lost my train of thought there a bit, but the point I think I'm trying to make is that in an infinite reality, God cannot have personality, and creators come and go all the time. People are creators in that they create children, but you don't own a child forever, and they'll probably outlive you anyway. Most of them do. Most children outlive their parents these days anyway. Maybe not 100 years ago, but these days most kids outlive their parents. I've outlived both of mine. I'm 74. So God to me is not a person, not a thing, not a ruler, not anything. All that religious crap was just made up by people who were smarter than the people around them and realized they can control them by putting the fear of God into them and some concept of original sin. I mean, that's just an evil concept. I mean, the very idea is so effing evil that if you had any brains, you'd see, well, that's like evil, original sin. Give me a break. But dumb people fall for that kind of crap. You know, people that don't know much, or people that are ignorant. Being ignorant is just not knowing. I know probably more than many of you or most of you know, but I'm still ignorant of many things. And the flamers out there are going to take advantage of me saying that. But I'm ignorant of biochemistry, a lot of it. My field is physics, and more particularly particle physics. So as a physicist, I'm terrified of microbes. I know they're a life form, and I need a doctor's help, so I'm ignorant of a lot of medical things, but that's what I mean by ignorance. Ignorance sort of comes from the same kind of word as ignore. It's something we just haven't taken in yet, and being smart is not that easy to define. I know I'm really smart, but I know where my problems lie. I have certain reading problems and I visualize things in my head, so memorizing certain things is very difficult for me in spite of how smart I am. And I know the teachers used to say, your IQ is really high, why aren't you doing this or that? But in my day, the idea of smart kids and classes for smart kids back in the 1940s and 50s, that wasn't invented yet. I was just a quiet kid who kept to himself. So I'm up to 16 minutes here, and I just want to make myself useful by spreading my ideas and telling others who are questioning, especially young people. There's a lot of young people, there will be people coming, if you're watching this, you have some interest in God, so you're either coming here to trash me or find a reason to trash me, or you're interested in something. And for young people who really think, well, what is God? And there's all these religions, and in the Jewish religion, there is no heaven and there is no hell. I know they want to believe there's going to be some kind of Messiah and all that, but when you're dead, you're dead, and that's pretty much why Jewish people are the way they are. I'm not trashing Jewish people, so don't get on me. I'm not trashing Jewish people. I've worked with many of them. They're very difficult because a lot of them have been brought up understanding business. I wasn't brought up to understand business, and it's like, it's just business. They can be very shrewd. And just because they said they were going to do something doesn't mean that's what they were actually going to do. Because when you actually get to do it, that's when the negotiations start all over again. And if you work with Jewish people, you'll get to know what I mean, and some Asians too. Sharp business people. Where were I? So in the Jewish religion, there is no heaven or hell. And I know Satan got into the book of Job, but that was just a mistranslation. In the original Aramaic, the word was STN, which is Shaitan, or I don't know how you pronounce it, but STN. They don't have vowels in Aramaic, and when the Greek Bible was translated, whoever translated the original Greek Bible didn't know what STN meant. It means somebody with whom you disagree or having an argument, and the word STN is more properly, I understand, a verb rather than an adverb or an adjective, and it's not meant to be a noun. It's not a person's name. It's just somebody with whom you don't agree. And then later on in later translations, or even in the Greek translation, STN got translated as Satan, and then it got translated as the word diabolos, which Jerome translated into diabolos. But diabolos and Satan are the same word, and it's just a whole bunch of translation errors. It's not an actual person. It's anybody with whom, in Job's case, came across who would have been somebody who disagreed with him about his God. That was the whole point of the argument, was Job believed in his God, and this other person said, why else, eh? Yeah, Job did a lot of suffering. Bonehead. Oh, well, where were I? So I hate religions. And as a physicist, I've come to realize that the very idea, and also studying religions, that the idea of God as a person, or God as a personality, or God as anything other than everything that's around us, and also in the physics, and you'll like this or not like this, because of the nature of dark energy, there's nothing which is not, empty space is not a reality. Nothingness does not exist. I know it's a little difficult to wrap one's head around. We're used to things being within things, but you can see my hands happily going through the atoms of oxygen and nitrogen in the air, and we know things go through space. And physicists will tell you that on the surface of things you're mostly empty space anyway. But there is something in between, and it's not nothingness. And it's not other atoms. It's particles really that are just so small. We don't observe. They're fluid. It's like in an earthquake when the ground turns solid ground, and an earthquake can turn into liquid. So from our point of view, it's just liquid, and anything smaller than an electron, I'm telling you this as a physicist, oh there you are over there, I'm telling you this as a physicist that the smallest solid thing of any consequence is the electron, and in my theory I believe there is another major particle smaller than the electron, which I call a quantum. Handily it fits in with quantum physics, but a quantum it's not a photon, but a photon and a quantum are all one and the same. An easy way, if you're a physicist, to understand this is, in my belief, an electron is an icosahedron composed of 20 tetrahedrons, which are quantum units. So one could say that every electron is composed of 20 quantum units of energy, if that's useful to you, if you're a physicist. That's my idea. And that the electron, the physical size, sets the speed of light. But I've been so busy studying physics and things that the very idea of God is just plain evil. And if I can do anything in my life to kill the idea of a God that's going to hurt you, like, the Old Testament God was, anybody that reads that seriously would realize, was quite the psychopath. And if you read the Quran, it's just a book of evil. The God of the Quran is a horrific book, a book of horrors. It survives because it has religious protection. The things that it says, if you wrote a book today which did not have religious protection, it would be against the law to publish a book like the Quran in Canada. It goes against a number of our laws, and it would be against our Constitution. And the only reason the Quran is accepted is most people haven't even read it, even the people that are supposed to have read it. And certainly most government officials, I can guarantee you, I've never read the Quran. I know you've never read the Quran. I have read the Quran. It is a book of horrors. It is a book of pure evil. I condemn the Quran. And I condemn all religions, so don't feel bad if you're a Muslim. I condemn Christianity. I condemn any religion there is as being pure evil that's trying to strike fear into your hearts so that people can take control of your minds. But remember this, because it's getting up there now and I'm going to shut up. You don't need religion to be a good person. You don't need religion to be a moral person. In your heart, you know what's right or wrong. And then maybe you don't. Maybe, like, there'll be people out there, I mentioned slavery earlier, who think slavery, there's a mouthful, is perfectly acceptable. And so is that if you had a God and God was supposedly merciful and treated everybody equally, why would there be slavery? But Muhammad and Jesus both asked people to treat their slaves kindly, so even in Jesus' time, Jesus did not condemn slavery. How about that? But you didn't know that. Oh, here's one for you Christians. This is just one before I go. You know how Easter We're still going. I thought maybe the camera had stopped there. At Easter is like you have Palm Sunday and all that. I came across some information a while ago, which I think I'd like to spread to you so-called Christians. Palm fronds do not happen in the Middle East in spring. They happen in the fall. Where do they come from? There is a theory going around that Jesus was actually arrested in the fall and was held for quite some time before being crucified. I'm of the opinion that the whole crucifixion thing was a whole hoax. It was a setup that people get nailed up in crosses all the time and survive for hours. It's not a big deal. You don't die in a couple. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't. And the Bible refers to a soldier putting a sponge up to his mouth with something to drink, which could easily, Roman soldiers, they didn't get any money. They were in this outpost from somewhere where they didn't want to be, and it wouldn't take very much to bribe a few Roman soldiers. So they could have easily drugged Jesus, which would put him into a stupor, and they could have poked him to make sure he was really out, and then it was the Sabbath, so there was nobody around. It'd be really easy to take a body down on the Sabbath, and there just wasn't anybody around. I'm not going to get into that. And as a Christian, I'm going to tell you I'm a gay man. I'm a queer. One of the most interesting things in the Bible was the night that Jesus was arrested. He was with a young man who was never identified. When the people came to arrest him, a young man was seen fleeing naked from Jesus. And if you've seen the Da Vinci Code, and you start looking more closely at Leonardo da Vinci's was Leonardo's or Michelangelo? Leonardo. The Last Supper, there's a 13th person who is a woman in the painting. I'm supposed to be talking about God. There is no God. God is just a metaphor for the sum of reality. What's going on, I haven't a clue. As a physicist, I can tell you it's going to take care of itself. When I'm gone, which could be in 10 minutes for all I know, I'm 74. I didn't really think I'd live this long, and here I am. I'm still here. So because I live alone and I'm gay, my boyfriend died 25 years ago, and so I live alone, and I'm not the social type. I'm a little bit of a Sheldon Cooper type, so you can see why people find me weird. You probably find me weird. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Do I care? No, I don't care. That's why my nickname is Butch. So I'm up to 28 minutes and 15 seconds, and I don't know if I made any point, except I tried to make myself useful today by trying to stab God and kill religion and comfort you if you think the whole idea of God is just wacko. It is. There is no God. Don't worry about it. Whatever is going on, and just follow your heart. Try to be useful on the planet. Try and do something constructive. You're going to be dead. I mean, really, you're going to die. I'm going to die sooner than you, probably, because I'm old. But make yourself useful on this planet. And as a physicist, I can tell you this planet is in really big trouble. All right, talking to the microphone. You're over there. You're over there, see? There you go. There you are. I moved the camera. So I gotta shut up. This is Butch in Vancouver. So bye for Butch. Check me out. David Silvercloud. Terry David Silvercloud. Bye from Butch. Oops. Missed the button.